Hello everybody and welcome to Project Management. Okay, a couple of the course books we're going to be using are the Rita Mulcahy's PMP Exam Prep. Make sure you have the current edition. Also, the PMBOK Guide, right? So make sure you read those materials as well as listen to these short summaries. Now, during these slides, over the course, I will have a lot of highlighted words. These slides really just summarize, or these lectures really just summarize the highlighted words. Those are the key concepts. But if you plan to sit for the PMP exam, these slides are also written as notes. Use them as notes to prepare as you read Rita's book and the PMBOK Guide. Enhance these notes with your own thoughts and then memorize it and apply it in your life. Yes, I love it. Okay, so beginning, this slide is the big picture of project management. Notice the 5 process groups. We have initiating here, then planning in the middle, then executing, controlling, and closing finally. Now, notice what's not in a box is right up here in the top left. These are called the business documents, and there are 2 of them. If I say business documents, you want to always think the business case, which is why the project is needed, and the benefits management plan, which will largely discuss your return on investment. We'll just leave it at that. This on the right is a color-coded box for each of the knowledge areas. There are 10 knowledge areas. Integration management is in brown. That's who you are as the project manager. So 4.1 in initiating, this process is going to manage for you the entire process group. In 4.2, develop project management plan. This process is going to help you manage all of the planning processes, etc. In executing, 4.3 and 4.4 are your processes in integration management. They are going to help you manage these other executing processes, etc. Now, this is my graph. This is a summary from the PMBOK Guide, page 25. You see the process groups along the top: initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing. Notice you don't see the business documents because they're really not part of what the project manager is part of. You receive the business documents as an input to develop project management plan. Now, if you're invited to sit in on the business document development, you would say yes, because you would just sit in the back and you'd be writing down stakeholders' names, their role, their passion, their needs, etc. It's going to help you in stakeholder management and in communications later. But largely you receive those documents is the normal process. Now, I will be asking you to memorize this chart if you're going to sit for the exam, and I have some handouts to help you develop that effort. Now, the new exam divides project management also into 3 domains. These provide a flexible framework, and you can read more about this in Rita's book on those pages. But in summary, there's nothing really new in the people's, processes, and business environment. Those are the 3 domains. The percentage of the test, the people is 42%, processes 50%, and business environment 8%. But to be honest, we were already covering that material, so we're not going to focus on the domains, but just know that the term is used, what the domains are, and generally what they're about. So the domains for people are about leadership, motivation, conflict management, like Liam Neeson, using a unique set of PM skills. Processes apply the technical aspect, subject matter experts, and business environment. You want to have a good idea of strategy. You want to study the business case. Is one of those business documents. So we have the business case at the strategic level. It's going to help you build the process groups that I summarize as IPEC, initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling is the first C, and then closing. And these are also supported by the domains, and always really have been, but domains is just a new way of dividing it up. This gives you the fullest understanding of project management. Now, also new to this exam is that there's a bigger focus on Agile project management. So this course generally largely studies on the left-hand side predictive or waterfall project management. But it is going to incorporate now more Agile change-driven project management. So frankly, most projects I run are largely predictive or waterfall, but in essence, they've always been kind of a hybrid of the two. The difference is that predictive or waterfall project management is risk-based, where Agile is change-based, right? And so we're going to largely study predictive, but we do have some slides in each knowledge area on the Agile process, and you want to know those now for the exam and know that a hybrid approach is very popular. Now, when we go back to talking about predictive project management, this is a similar graph. Your current PMBOK guide will have a slightly different version of it, but I like this one. It is from the PMBOK guide back in 2000, but to me, it more clearly articulates what it's trying to share. Is that we're going to talk about project management in some sort of chronological fashion, and it can be useful in that way, right, as a way of study. But realize in the back of your mind that you are integrating things that are happening all the time throughout IPEC, throughout initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing, right? These processes are all interacting with each other constantly. In fact, executing and controlling, the different process groups are happening at the same time. In fact, you are controlling even back in initiating, right? We tend to think of initiating as just initiating, but you're actually beginning to control. In fact, in project management, it is largely a spirit. This is a philosophical approach for the exam, a spirit of control in predictive project management. Now, to help understand how to think about the exam and project management, realize that we want to think of super large projects, not small projects like most of us have been a part of. Our small projects are still valuable. There's probably still $1 million efforts, but I wanted you to think in terms of $10 billion efforts and multi-year projects like building the Freedom Tower in New York City, that massive 9 or 10 building complex. And that gives you a sense of where predictive project management is trying to take you. Now, we will detail our plan in predictive, but we also use the term progressive elaboration, where we progressively elaborate or detail as things become known to us, right? Now, for the exam, realize that the exam could address language, so you need to memorize the language. Then you need to understand the processes and also grasp the philosophy of project management. So here's an example of that. In project management, if you look down in purple, right, it says the project manager is assigned by the project management office, or the PMO. Now, in doing that, one of the processes is to identify stakeholders. So by process, if I asked you, when do you identify all stakeholders? You would say in the initiating process group, in red there in the vertical, and in the process called identify stakeholders. That's the process answer. If I asked you when by philosophy you were identifying stakeholders, look at the bottom of the slide. Philosophically, you'd say, well, I am always identifying stakeholders. So one is a process answer, one is a philosophical answer. Notice in red too on the left, that in project selection, that's about the business case. I identified it as BIZ, just shorthand there for me. And the benefits management plan that we talked about, that's the return on investment, SOWs, and statements of work and contracts can also be part of that. Now that again is largely happening without you there. But if you are asked to attend, say yes, okay? Now in the IPEC overview, then continuing in the planning process group, we'll plan the knowledge areas. Our job is to integrate them, and we'll always want to go back and make sure that they are all aligned with each other. I don't have more schedule plan than I have budget, right, to afford the schedule. And then always do a kickoff meeting. In executing process group, I'm largely about managing people. And if you remember the people domain, this is where we're going to do largely conflict management, leadership, etc. This is where we build it, right? And we approved changes get implemented back into execution. That's where approved changes go. And during execution, we're collecting work performance data, always just data, not analyzed, but just collecting data, and of course requesting changes. Now it's in monitoring and controlling that I am requesting changes also, but I am doing work performance information, which is analyzing that data that I just got from executing, and doing work performance reports, okay, which are summary executive statements sheets to the key stakeholders. And I'm out to control the plan by measure against the baselines and any other metrics. And then, of course, I'll close the project or phase, getting formal sign-off, customer feedback, doing final reports, archiving everything, and doing lessons learned, asking the customer for feedback. Now, to do this, for example, the initiating process group has three key outputs. The charter itself, which is always high level, an assumptions log, and then those are outputs of the developed project charter. The other process, if you look on page 25, down the initiating process group, is called Identify Stakeholders. My key output there is my stakeholder register, which is really just a list of stakeholders. And this is on the right, a summary of page 25, the picture itself. These are the processes, and I note the output. Notice the output is in brown because that process 4.1 is what you do as the project manager. You, with the team that you've developed so far, will create the charter and the assumptions log. And then your stakeholder SMEs will, through this process, develop your stakeholder register with you. Okay? So, a celebration of knowledge. What if you came late to a project? What documents would you want to review? Well, I would ask for the business case. If I were late to a project, maybe I was hired late and the project had already begun. So show me the business case, the benefits management plan. I'd love to see the charter, and I'd love to see the stakeholder register. I could also add contracts and statements of work to that. Okay, planning. What's the value of planning? Well, look at this. These guys started planning, but look, they've boxed. Those are barriers, right, for security. They've boxed themselves in. How are they going to get their truck out of there? Planning matters, okay? So we are going to stop there and pick it up, start reviewing the other IPEC process groups when we come back.